Hello and welcome to a Smite tier list. Today's tier list will be based on Smite God Abilities per class. Now, to break that down to exactly what it means, I'll be looking at their overall abilities of each individual god on their set class. We'll be looking over how strong the abilities are, how useful they are, and if they are a tad overpowered. The tier list will be set up a little bit differently to a normal tier list. Normal tier list is E is the worst god in the game, S is the best god in the game, or the most broken. This tier list will only be used as a way to break up their abilities per god. Now, I'll go over each of the tier lists. Now, D tier, any god that you will see in D tier are gods who I personally think, due to their abilities, their basic attack, and their passive. Some gods I will have to mention are passive. Not all gods I need to mention are passive, but some of them, their passive flows with a lot of their abilities. The D tier are any gods who I would believe actually are in the wrong role. And what I mean by that is, for example, you see a guardian who doesn't really fit being a guardian, so you put him as a mage. I personally think they were purposely, accidentally put in the wrong area. The S tier, or sorry, the C tier. The C tier are any gods I think could potentially have a buff on their abilities. Not so much of an item, potentially, that they buy. That could help them. I think that if they have no items and you look at their abilities from what they have, I think they could actually deserve with a little bit of an increase. B tier, they're fine. B tier is what an overall rounder should be. That's potentially what I say is a perfectly fine Guardian for their abilities, perfectly fine Hunter for their abilities. A tier are ones I would like to have a little bit of tweak done. Now, what I mean by this is the A tier is quite simply one of the abilities might not fit and I say could have a little bit of rework, or indeed one of the actual abilities in question, could you change it? Because it doesn't seem to be very fair. Now, the term fair I'm going to be using quite a lot. The S tiers are the tier list of the most broken. For their abilities, their attack, and of course I will specify again, some gods I will be looking at their basic attack, other gods I won't, and some gods I'll be looking at their passive, and other gods I won't. But the S tier will come to my free listings. These are the gods I want reworked, removed, or massive nerf, because they are broken beyond all belief. Now, the E tier will very, very rarely be used, but the E tier is due to my opinion on the god, after I've put them in S tier, are they the gods that need to be removed. E tier is for I want them gone. And that's for my personal preference, but also looking at it from a... I've been playing Smite for 3 years now, so I thought, you know what, I'll make a list of the abilities and just ignore the rest of the factors. I'm not looking at their items. I'm not looking at what relics they buy, what potions they buy, what role they're in. I'll just be looking at it based on their ability. Now, some gods, I may have to mention that the fact, due to their abilities, like in a game of Conquest, they can actually play other roles. But that won't be spoken too much of. Now, just to clarify a few things as well before we get started, I will be covering the Guardians, the Warriors, the Hunters, and the Mages. I will not be covering Assassins, as I am not very, very well seasoned with the Assassins. I don't tend to play them. I probably play about 6, and that's it. Last, but by no means least, my grievances, or my hatred. There are 3, I'd say nearly 3 to 4 things that I see currently in Smite that I disagree, and I think a few of them should be reworked, or a few of them should be changed. And they are, I won't put them in any particular order, crowd control. For Guardians, this is extremely popular. Guardians and crowd control go hand in hand, and it's just the duration of how long crowd control can last. It can also affect that how long it takes to recover, and trying to build into crowd control is sometimes a lot harder than you'd think. Lifesteal slash heal. Lifesteal, I still argue that it should be drastically reduced, because how to counter lifesteal is actually insanely difficult. Such as if you build into the item for like the Guardian. The reason I keep mentioning the Guardians is we're starting with the Guardians. But the reason I mention Guardians is because you could buy Pestilence or Contagion and it only does 25%. So lifesteal is a no-no. Heal equally. Some gods having a passive heal is fine. But other gods who solely based on heal, I find a tad a bit annoying. And those really are the main 4 contributing factors. There is another one, but I'll mention that as I get to it. But without further ado, I'd like to thank Smite Tier List for making an insanely easy tier list to follow, and an insanely easy one to make. Let's go straight in with Guardians. Ooh. Guardians, I would say, personally for me, is one of the most convoluted and complicated tier lists. Now that's the tier list I'll be talking about. Let's get straight into it. We'll start with the C. We're going to go C, B, A, D, S. Confusing, eh? Fafnir. C tier. Fafnir, I would personally say, is a very good all-rounder god. As much, I can't really remember every single ability off the top of my head, but we're going to go over them. I'm a PlayStation gamer as well, my apologies. Hammer Throw is very, very effective. Being able to stun and slow enemies down that are near him. Having a passive-based buff that he can give to his allies, which improves their attack speed and gives Fafnir health, as well as giving the player extra tiny bonus of damage. And Fafnir's jump is very effective. The problem I have with Fafnir, why I think he deserves a buff, is that his ultimate is really quite crap. What I mean by that is, when of course you turn into the dragon form, you get more enhanced abilities of his original stack. The only problem is what he does when it happens. Now what I mean by that is, when he transforms into the dragon, as soon as he lands, he's dead. As in, he can be grabbed. He can be stunned. He can be phased. He can be locked. He can be battered beyond all belief. Now, this is a massive problem because, of course, of the release of certain gods. Varmina is another one who is like a transformation-based ability. When Varmina is in his form, he cannot be grabbed. He cannot be stunned. He cannot be pushed away. Cthulhu, or Hulu, or Giant Squidman, he, in his ult, is same. He's invincible. He cannot be grabbed by an Ares ult, by a Dachi ult, pulled in by Samadi, stepped in a trap by Artemis. Jormungandr is another one that's not really so much of a transformation, but he does do something continuous in his ult. He can't be hit. And most importantly, I would go the warrior, who I'm going to botch trying to pronounce his name without actually looking at it, Cuchulainn, the Celtic warrior. When his rage meter becomes full, he turns into quite an angry guy. But he can be stunned and grabbed, but he's a lot faster and a lot more nimble than Fafnir. Fafnir, the problem I think is that due to this, of him transforming, coming into his main form, he can actually be battered very quickly. The solution is, when you use your ult, I want it so when he explodes, he pushes people away from him. Because currently, as a situation I had happened not too long ago, playing Fafnir in the role of support, I turn into dragon, I sit down, Samadi pulls me away, knocks me into that, Artemis activates a pig, they just batter me. They just slaughter me. And that is without even a second judgment. Of course, using relics might counter this, but then again, you relying too much on relics. So Fafnir, although his abilities are perfect, and I actually like playing Fafnir, his passive, giving him a little bit of extra gold, is quite nice, but it's just his ult seems to be lackluster in transformation when looking at all the other transformation-based gods. Moving on to the B tier, these are the gods who I personally think fit the role of Guardian very well. Now, I will mention, certain gods will be moved around. As I mentioned, S tier may be moved to E tier, and I may move a couple of A tier down to B tier, and vice versa. So we'll start off. B tier we won't talk too much about, but we'll go into them briefly. Ganesh is a perfect example, I think, of a really well-balanced god. Line attack, pretty effective. It doesn't cause massive amounts of damage, it's quite nice. Is the most annoying thing on the planet to fight against, but it is insanely helpful to the team, also giving them a defense increase. His dash is very useful for grabbing and knocking people and basically stabbing them into the ground. And his ult is extremely powerful and extremely effective for Ganesh and for the team. It causes a substantial amount of damage and is just a very good way of helping the team. Plus his passive, giving a kill bestow to his team, is a very nice gesture. Having a Ganesh go 0 to 10 but 14 give blessings is a very, very nice gesture. Geb is another one who I would say is... They're all very good gods, all the ones on this list. Rock ability, though, I will argue, is a little bit broken. He's not on the A tier because the rest of his abilities aren't that effective in terms of, oh, he's broken. Rock is the only one that would have. For a Geb to be able to turn into a rock and potentially run away at high speeds, and even in being in that form can't really be stopped, is quite an effective ability. But his line-based ability pushes minions and people up into the air. He has a shield, which is magical shell, which he can give to one of his allies, even getting them out of a trap or a bind situation. Say if someone walked into an Artemis trap, Geb uses his ability, it saves them. And his ult is very effective just as a stun. A lot of times you will see Geb being a massive tanky support, which is what you want. Kumbragana is another one who you could say is actually on the wrong class, but not. Kumbragana's abilities are very odd. He has a dash which pushes minions into people or other minions. He has a slam which whacks people on the head with a giant stick. His yawn, or mighty yawn, is very effective in causing people to be stunned, and it's quite a long effect. And then his ult just pushes people up in the air and slams them down. But when you look at him compared to another Guardian, would you say Kumbragana is broken? Not really, because he's more of helping the team than he is helping himself. His dash can be used to run away, he can knock people up in the air who are either low health or attacking his ally. The amount of times I've sat there, been playing a support, I have to specify now, my most played roles in Conquest for the game type is support, solo, mid. The amount of times I've saved somebody with that ult, as in the jungle has come in to kill my carry, I whack him up into the air, gives carry a chance to run away. But even so, in a massive game, say like Arena or Clash, having a massive fight going on and your team are losing it, Kumbragana can just use Mighty Yawn and stun them all, giving people a chance to run away. His stun isn't that dangerous as it doesn't actually cause damage, and of course once one tick of damage is done, they wake up again. But this is why he does really work. His passive is insanely broken in terms of that he can get himself back up again. But if you're in a 1v5 situation and you fall asleep on the floor, you're dead. Right. Sylvanas. Sylvanas is probably one of my favourite Guardians to play. He has 3 insanely useful abilities and one I still question why it exists. His flower, or his seed, throws at people, can stun them in the ground and root them. Or he can throw it on the floor and give allies an additional aura. His wisps are very effective, he shoots them up into the air. One of the only few healers in the game who I say that his heal is actually necessary and useful. But does that make him a healer? No, his wisps don't heal that much, and of course while they do heal lots of people, he's still not a healer as such. One ability for a heal is fine, but when you have more than one, or a certain god having it. For example, what I say exactly here, Sylvanas is not the only Guardian to be able to heal. We'll get onto more on that on another tier list. And then Sylvanas has an amazing punch to the ground and shoot everybody up into the air. I actually didn't know it poisoned people. I actually did some research the other day and found out it poisoned people. I'm God Mastery 9 with Sylvanas at the time of this recording, and I never knew it poisoned anyone. But the ability is useful. All of these abilities are used to help, heal, and stop people from attacking. The only grievance I have is his very slow moving grab arm, which is insanely slow and insanely weak and takes a very long time to hit anything. Sobek is on the verge of being A tier, but we'll get into why. His dash is probably one of the most broken for dashes in the game, where he can skewer one of you and throw you over. Now, in a game, for example, like Joust or Assault, where you're on a one-lane basis, having a crocodile skewer you while you're stood on the tower and fling you in, or while he's stood on the tower, skewer you and fling you in. Unlike Khepri will grab you and pull you in slowly, and while you can still attack them. Sobek will grab you, fling you in the air, and there's not much you can do to counter it. There are a few grab-based abilities, but like, for example, Ares requires the grab for his ult. Sobek is very quick to use it. That is really the only downside with Sobek. His clearance, or his tail spin, is pretty dull and not very effective, but it actually does the job of getting people away from you. It can actually knock, say, example like Khepri from grabbing someone. His lifesteal is not exactly most effective because he's not really a lifesteal based god. It's nice to have because you get a little bit of health back. And his ult can be used to kill and can be used to cause a lot of damage. But the actual effect of the ult is whoever stood inside it is slowed down. And if you are the role of the Guardian, you can use this to help your team by slowing down the enemy, helping your team to get away, or indeed just stopping them in the middle of combat. Sobek overall is quite a well-balanced god except for that one ability. And now, this delightful fellow, I'm going to go by how the gods call themselves rather than their actual names. He calls himself Xing Shen. I'm probably wrong by that. Xing Shen is the last one here, and his abilities do actually work very well. His fire breath is quite effective. It actually causes tick damage over time, similar to that of poison. His jump in the air and slam you in the ground is a very useful ability, as is most things, but usually used to stop somebody. I have to use the role of Conquest here because they're very effective. Or just even in a game of Clash. You're fighting somebody in the lane, ground pound them into the floor, your allies and friends can come in and take the kill. His jump away ability is very effective, but his jump away ability and his ult go hand in hand. Jump in twice with the axe throw, use your axe, spin around, pick them all up and throw them away. Or throw them towards. Similarly to Ares and probably Cerberus, he has a very good ability, but the reason why he's here and they're not is because Cerberus and Ares are a little bit more broken. Xing Shen doesn't typically bring the damage. While I have experimented with certain Guardians playing on solo, for example, Xing Shen doesn't really fit well to being on solo because of his lack of actual damage. While his fire breath is very effective, and while of course his slam is very useful, they're not really causing a massive amount of damage. However, if you build him as a Guardian, he works very well. B tier, fine. Moving on to A tier. Now, straight away, we're going to get into A tier, my grievance, my fourth grievance. I mentioned it earlier, but I needed to explain it with an actual god, Artio. So, as I mentioned, my four issues were crowd control, lifesteal, heal, and I'm going to call it a multi-skill ability. Now, what I mean by that is gods who have more than the outside 4 abilities. It's a cool concept to have, but more and more gods are getting it. And when you look at god-based abilities, you've really got to go, yes, okay, that's actually broken. Artio is very close to actually being on the S tier, but then again, can she be fixed? Do I really want her to be removed or reworked? No, I would like her to have a little bit of a change. Personally, I think the multiple skill ability could be gone because it's getting a little bit out of hand now. What it is having 6 abilities that can cause damage rather than 3 and an ult. They sacrifice their ult in terms of having another free set of abilities. Now, this is pretty useful in terms of example. We'll go Fafnir has the same sort of thing, or the warrior that I'm not going to try and pronounce his name again. However, them two, one uses his ult and then transforms back into his usual self, and the other one builds up his rage meter and then transforms back into himself. These based gods are solely press triangle and you get a new set of abilities, and they don't have a cooldown when you change over to them. Now, in the process of Artio can actually use 6 abilities all pretty much at once, which is kind of a little bit broken. Going over them, you have a stun, a root, and a root is basically roots come out, nobody can jump away or run away unless they use their ult, example. She has a slash with claws, she has a heal, she has a lifesteal, and she has a dash. 6 abilities, all that actually cause substantial amount of damage, give heal, give lifesteal, give crowd control. Artio 100% is a broken god for her abilities, because she has all 4 of the most broken things in the game. But, does that mean I want her gone? No. Does that mean I want her reworked? Kind of. My argument will always be gods with multiple abilities are just unfair to fight against, and personally could be looked at, whether it's reducing the cooldown, reducing the overall effects of the abilities, but it doesn't make sense to me that from a god to go 3 abilities and 1 ult to 6 abilities, no ult. It just doesn't add up to me, and that's the reason why Artio's up here. Can I drop her down? No, not really, because she's still very broken. Athena is only up here for one reason. Crowd control and her ult. Athena's dash is very effective, dashing through his line of minions and then able to throw a spear. Her circle is a ground pound, which causes quite a substantial amount of damage when it eventually implodes. However, her crowd control is pull enemies towards her. Now, unlike a stun, if you get hit in this ability, you're still sustainable to crowd control. And the problem with this is it's coming to the form that it's just too much crowd control. And say if you're a hunter, you're a mage, you don't typically tend to build it. And having them come towards you and everyone else can attack you is an annoyance. But the problem with Athena is her ult, really, is it's a very well thought out ult. Teleport to a random ally in the map. Now, in a game like maybe Assault, Joust, not very effective, it's used to get to the fight. Clash, Arena, not very effective, it's just used to get into the fight. However, in a game of Conquest and Siege, it can be quite problematic, because them two are mainly based on lane-based combat. They're both 2 big lanes stretched very far apart. And Athena can jump from this lane to this lane instantly. So if you're fighting in a game and Athena teleports from your lane, you know she's going to go teleport to one of her allies. Which it can be quite problematic, seeing how instant it is. It's reinforcements on the way, she can just launch up into the air and land on the person. But, does that make her broken? A little bit, but she's still a guardian. And true, she usually is one of the gods you don't see with top damage, because she is actually played like a guardian. Can I move her down? This is an ability-based list, and the ability to teleport the entire strength of the map to one of your allies is a tiny bit broken. So unfortunately, Athena stays where she is. For now. Cerberus. Very, very close to being on the verge of D tier, Cerberus. Cerberus is just has so many abilities that I don't really think help the team. He has a stun that has to be charged with his X ability, which is his breath. He just shoots out fire from his 3 mouths. His stun, which then is charged up, can actually shoot 3 lines and damage someone. His jump, land on a group of enemies. It causes ghosts to run towards you. You kill the ghost, you heal yourself. And then his ult can be used as a grab, bring people towards you, or grab, throw people away from you. Now, the reason why I don't think he should be in D tier, while a lot of his abilities are used to help himself, is that he just could actually be a guardian. his damage overall isn't actually that strong compared to some of the other gods in the game. And his ult, while is annoying, isn't the same as sort of like an Ares or a Xing Chen. Jumps on the ground, lifts them up into the air, and pushes them a little bit away, not too far away. Does it stun them? No. It just makes them all go to one location. Now, in a game like, say, Clash or Arena, you do that, bring them all onto one location. Poseidon and Zeus drop their ults at the exact same time. Kaplam, dead. Now, why that's not as effective in Conquest is you've only got one person there who could potentially do damage. And even so, what's stopping them from just running away? You've got two people to try and kill two. 2-on-2. So, for me, Cerberus could just use either a cooldown reduction or having one of his abilities be more dedicated to the team. But then again, I still argue with crowd control and maybe not having stun as one of his abilities. I don't know. The problem with some of these gods is I can't really say how can you fix them. But Cerberus is a very good tank, but has too many abilities based around himself. Now maybe, an easy one, if you do take away his stun, when the ghosts appear, if his allies could attack them, it could heal them and himself. But of course, with a reduced factor, would be a very nice addition. But of course, you have to see. Does he actually need a massive nerf or a massive buff? No. I could put him down here. The only reason he's up there is because, again, he's a Guardian who's mainly looking out for himself rather than anyone else. But for now, we'll leave him on B tier. Khepri will never, ever, ever, ever be able to leave A tier. The single most broken god in the entire game, aside from that of maybe Kronos. Grab is annoying. Line attack causes a bit of damage. Stun you in place, a little bit annoying. His ult, ridiculous. Khepri's ult Resurrection is just insane. The amount of times you're in a game and that blessing is thrown on somebody and they just teleport away and resurrection. It just, for a Guardian sense, it doesn't really make sense as a Guardian, but that is the only real thing, because he can play a tank very well. He's a big, beefy tank. But to give a resurrection to every god in the game, and the only way to counter it is to have an instant kill ability. And there are only 3 of those gods in the game who have an instant kill ability. And 3 gods against however many more there are in the game is a very bit, like over 70 gods. So you have to have one of the 3 gods to counter Khepri, who... ridiculous. Of course, then again, does that make him insanely broken? No. Does he need a nerf? Yes, his ult could probably have a longer cooldown. But, is it a guaranteed resurrection every time? No, because with skilled players, they might stop attacking and wait for the blessing to wear off. However, when he resurrects them, if he's actually not in a good location, he could actually get himself and them killed. Also, Khepri can sometimes accidentally misclick. Now, the amount of times I've misclicked on somebody, as in you've had 2 players right next to each other, one's 100% health, one's 5, you accidentally hit the wrong one. It's not a very well hittable ability if there's a lot going on. But with Khepri, as he is a good Guardian, you have to look where you are. Because if you're by your tower, you resurrect someone, they're safe. If you're in their Phoenix and you resurrect someone, that might be a problem. But he can never drop down from A tier because he's basically a second life. That's all he is. The worst I've ever seen was in a game of Assault. Khepri had 8 resurrections. 8 resurrections. And our team just got slaughtered. We couldn't do a thing. Brought them back. Health was fine. Plus his passive is insanely annoying. It's basically a magic shell. So Khepri will always be up here. He is a very good functioning tank, but a little bit too broken. Now, Gusenbo is an odd one. Gusenbo is another one of the concepts. There are 2 other, like, sort of smaller concepts that annoy me. And I would potentially go with this one, more of being number 5, hands down. The other one that annoys me is an instant kill. But that's fine, because there's only 3 gods who can do that. and they're not ridiculously annoying gods. We'll get to them later when we get to their lists. But Gusenbo has an ally. Now, allies to me, I don't know why some gods have them and a lot of gods don't. Now, what I mean by an ally, arachnid spiders, basets, cats, nuars, statues. Gusenbo throws his turtle. Now, true, throwing a small turtle at an enemy is probably not the best idea, but it's just annoying. And does it make Gusenbo broken? No. Is it annoying? Very. But my argument is, why does a guardian have that? Why does the big, beefy tank have a small minion that he can throw at people? True, it is insanely funny. Gusenbo is oddly enough my favourite god in the entire game. God Mastery 10, straight away. I love him, he's a brilliant god. But even I will admit sometimes with my favourite gods and go, that doesn't make sense. Gusenbo, the rest of his abilities, damage mitigation ability, anyone hits him, it hits them back. Sumo Slam, grab them, smack them into a wall, and his ult is used to spin people away. The reason why, again, Gusenbo's up here is that there's only really one ability linked to helping the team. He's more helping towards himself. And the damage he can actually do. Quite recently now, you tend to see Gusenbo being top damage of the team, even though he's not built for a Guardian. He's just built a Guardian. Now, of course, ignoring the stuff you buy for them, of course, as I mentioned, you look at his abilities. He has a clearance ability which causes tick damage over time until it's done. He has a throw minion, and he has a damage mitigation. All of those abilities are solely meant to help himself. But that's what some Guardians do. Some Guardians are mainly used as to help the team, or the others are used there to take all the damage. Gusenbo is used to take all the damage. Cerberus, you would say the same, but there's no real abilities that Cerberus have other than the heal that could keep him alive for longer. Gusenbo has Sumo Slam, which is charge at the enemy, throw your child at them, spin people away from him, or spin minions off the tower. He has basically got a lot of abilities to make him a solid tank. The only reason he's up here is because a lot of his abilities just are a little bit annoying. But the most important, does this make him broken? Thankfully, Gusenbo, you're not broken. Having a minion which is a small turtle which runs towards people and then dies very quickly is not very threatening. We'll get onto an ally very soon, maybe the next video, which I find is ridiculous and annoying, but we'll get to that another day. Last but not least for the A tier is Ymir. Ymir is very close to being D tier again. The reason why he's not is because of his wall. Wall is pretty useless. He can shoot through it, but also Magical can shoot through the wall, which really makes Ymir quite terrible. Ymir has a wall that he can summon up, which can be used as a block, which is a very good, or it can accidentally be used to block your own team, or block yourself from getting away. His line attack is very effective, cause a row of ice spikes to stop people getting away. His Frost Breath, very effective because it's crowd control, and you know how much I love that. And his ult causes a significant amount of damage when fully charged. Now, why Ymir is up here is because of his passive. His passive is whenever he hits somebody with his ability, it causes slow. Which kind of is insanely annoying. When you get hit by one spike from the ice, when you get hit by his frost from his breath or his ult, you're slowed down, which can cause a lot of the allies to come in and just take the kill and slaughter. But for me, I say there is an easy one thing: change his passive, because he already has a crowd control, which is his slow. He already has a block you from getting away ability. Why does he need a slow ability? I mean, sorry, his breath is, or freeze breath is to freeze the subject to stop them getting away. Then he summons a wall, blocks them. Then he uses his ult, kaboom! Just change his passive, make it 3 seconds. It's currently 7 seconds. 7 seconds of slow. Now, if you're tier, that's 6 seconds. But still, it's still annoying. Now, why he isn't like a D tier is because, unlike the rest of the gods, his ult, while insanely damaging, is not that dangerous. Now, I'll give you a prime example. Ymir summons a wall, blocks you. He starts to use his ability, kaboom. Ymir has to think to himself, he's not moving. He's sat in the middle of a circle. It's like a Hades ult. Oh, speaking of which, there's Hades. What are you doing over there? It's like a Hades ult. When he uses it, he's currently stood there pulling people in. Everyone can still attack him. Now, of course, when you kill Ymir, the ability still goes off. But does Ymir want to really die for this? Now, of course, when he activates it, of course, with most characters, you can use a relic. If you're like Chang, for instance, you can just use your ability to immune to health, or use your ult to run away. But it's just, you can see him doing it, and to get 100% effectiveness, you have to wait for it to fully charge. And that as an ult for a Guardian, when you look at other Guardians who have a similar sort of ability, Geb stuns the entire ground, Sylvanas punches everybody up in the air, instant. Ymir's is a build-up, a casual build-up, and that is a small problem in the game where it takes too long to do something. Which is why Ymir, in many ways, is actually not that broken. While having Wall, which is pretty useless because magical people can still hit through it, a Ice Spike and a Freeze, they're still very useful. If you get them all off together, they're very useful. But his ult is not dangerous massively. Of course, I'm not ignoring it does an insane amount of damage when it is fully charged, but a lot of the time you can see it. And the amount of times I've frozen somebody and gone, sweet, time to use my ult, they've woken up and ran away. And I've gone, oh. They just slowly walk away. But for me, Ymir probably just changes passive, then he would be perfect. Right! A tier done. I have dropped Cerberus, Guzumbo, and Ymir down. And I've come to the conclusion that built as a tank, two sort of dumb abilities. We're going to get to the D tiers. Now, these are gods who I think are currently in the wrong role. Ares. Ares is probably everyone's really, Ares. He's been here for donkey's years. But I don't see... He's got one ability that makes sense as a Guardian. He buffs his allies. The rest of his abilities are very stupid. He launches chains at people. He has 3 chains. He can continuously hit you with each chain. Then he sets you on fire. Now, if you're a mage or an assassin or a hunter, that causes an insanely large amount of damage. Not to mention his ult, grab all of the chains of all of you, pull you in. Not only that, it stuns you as well. The problem that you have with Ares is he's built like a tank, has a defense increase, and just causes an insane amount of damage. His chains, you can't even... I'm bringing beads into the equation, because even with beads, you can't escape the chain that he shoots at you from his shield. He is just an insanely strong Guardian, and it makes no sense how he's a Guardian. Because any sort of Guardian... Sure, the ability can be used to help allies, chain somebody from chasing after someone, but they can't use a dash, they can't use beads. It seems very, very unfair that this is really the only god in the game who can do something like that. And to my point, I think he should be a warrior. Because he's built like a warrior anyway, he has a sword and a shield, sets people on fire, shoots chains at people, pulls people in with an ult, while of course pulling people in with an ult is not really a warrior thing. He does seem to be like a warrior. Evidently though, he's a tank, therefore he has the tank attributes of can take damage. But the problem I have with high res at this point is when you make a tank, they can take damage like a tank, but they do damage of a warrior. Now a warrior doesn't take as much as a tank, but they do more damage. But when you have a tank who takes damage like a tank and does damage like a warrior, there's a problem. Which is why we're moving on to one of my least favourite gods in the game, Bacchus. Now, before anyone jumps on the bandwagon of... I know Bacchus is one of the most loved Guardians. I still think he's in the wrong role. I will jump on the bandwagon too. I loved Bacchus. Out of these gods, I've got 5 of them to God Mastery 10. Ares, Gusumbo, Bacchus, Khepri, and Sobek. Some of the most broken, I will have to admit. But this was many years ago. I got these gods to God Mastery 10. For me, Barkus was an insanely fun god to play. Barkus was always, for me, like Goosenbow. He was a damage taker. He took damage and was potentially there a blocker to help the team. It's only become recently that he's been getting a few buffs, and I don't know why. Because a lot of the time when you see on like an actual tier list, you see gods D tier or below. They go, oh, they don't do much for the team, and then you go, but wait, they're guardians. Now, for a mage not to be doing damage, that's a problem, but for a guardian not being able to do damage is not actually a problem. That's not something you need to look at. Guardian's role is to help the team and take damage. That's because they're the tank. But Barkus seems to have now abilities that none of them really help the team. They just help himself. Drink alcohol. The more he drinks, the stronger he is. Belly flop. Pushes people up in the air. Belch. Burps on people and stuns them. All seem to be helping himself. Now, a lot of the time with any god in the game, you can say help the ability. You're helping them. As in, you jump on them, stop somebody getting away. But you have to be more honest with yourself and now go that, wait, no, these are just helping Barkus. And the one thing I find so annoying with Barkus is his ult. Slam the ground, intoxicate everyone, and it causes a lot of damage. Now, when I say this, I compare him to the other slam-based abilities in the game. We have Easy, we have good old-fashioned Gib. Stuns everybody. Does it kill them? No. Sylvanas roots everybody up into the air. Does it kill them? No. Even Ymir. It can kill you, but you can get away because you see him charging up. And I'm even going to go for Sobek. Sobek, it can kill you, but he's charging up the same. And he's underwater, so he's underwater, he's swimming around. Barkus is instant. There's no split second. I can't quickly pop a relic. I can't quickly jump away. Instant is Barkus. Barkus is insanely quickly. There's no build up. It's just jump, slam on the floor, drunk. And that doesn't add up. As every other Guardian who has like a slam based ability, except from of course Geb and Sylvanas, they're not really used in the heart of the moment to kill. They're usually used push people up in the air, stop them running away. Geb, stun them. Barkus is straight damage. The toxicity or the drunk doesn't do a thing. It's just damage for Barkus. And my argument is, why the heck does Barkus build damage? Now, with Barkus, you do see him on any other role. You do see him, and I've countless times seen a Barkus being able to survive that long because he can just take it. The more he drinks, the more he can take. His jump away is ridiculous. He has a stun. And I will mention the last thing with Barkus, which doesn't make sense to me. I think it's a flaw on high res side, I'm not too sure. His belch only affects you at the end. When he's burping, he can't be hitting no one. As soon as the last bit hits you, you're stunned. So if you're there from all the way up to the end and miss it, you're fine. But then at the tiniest bit at the end, you get stunned. Doesn't make sense, but that might be them. Now, from Barkus having maybe one or two abilities to help the team to somebody who just doesn't make sense or help the team. Cabrakan, I don't know what they were really thinking with this god. Stun, stun, ground pound, stun. 3 stuns. What were you thinking when you made this guy a guardian? And what were you thinking when you made this guy? Movement speed increase, run quicker, crack somebody on the head, stun. If you've done enough, slam them together, another stun. Punch the ground to wear up your mana, and then drop your ult, which causes a stun and a dome effect. How the heck was a Cabrakan a good idea? His passive gives everybody a 5% damage reduction. Useful to a degree. But what were you thinking when you made the stun, 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 ground pound? As a guardian. Come on. A god with 3 stuns? How is that fair in the slightest? For me, 100% Cabrakan makes no sense, even as a god at the best of times. I love the design of Cabrakan. I actually do like him as a god. But it's very scary now that you see Cabrakan play more jungle than you do as Guardian. True, he doesn't take as much damage as everybody else, but stun, stun, stun damage. I'm sorry, but that doesn't make add up for a Guardian. Cabrakan, for me, is actually the only Guardian who you could potentially say could be an assassin. But I'll be nice and say, you know what, warrior. Because while stun, 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 and knock, he still just could be a warrior. But reduce the amount of stuns he can do, please. 3 is a little bit OTT. Now, Terra. Terra's an odd one. Terra is a love-hate relationship, mainly hate. Stun, root, and then an ult. Terra is such a very odd god because it's very hard to say she's not broken, but then she is. I'll say again, Terra, before we begin, warrior. All of these gods down the bottom should be warrior, hands down. But Terra, her square ability is a dash. On its own is useless. Her X ability summons up 2 pillars, and they collide together causing a stun. And her circle ability, PlayStation gamer again, sorry, is a totem, sort of rock thing that comes up, that heals the allies around her. However, when she runs through her pillar, or her, totem, it roots people in place and causes damage over time. However, when she runs through her wall, it launches rocks towards the enemy. And her ult is used as a heal/buff to help the team out. Now, the problem I have with Tira is the reason why she's down here is because she has 2 abilities for heal. While a lot of the time they're not used for heal, they kind of can be used quite badly for heal. Also, having a stun and having a root, she has a lot of abilities that really just kind of mess everyone up. The reason why she's not the same as Artio is because Artio is still not massively damage going. Terra has an insanely large amount of damage going, in that near enough every single one of her abilities is used just for damage. Artio has a root, which doesn't cause damage, a roar that doesn't cause damage. Her dash can cause damage, but she doesn't use it. She uses it probably just to run away most of the time. But Terra, I see having a lot of heal and a lot of damage. While it's not a massive amount of heal, it's still annoying to fight against as a Guardian. Now, there's only currently 3 Guardians in the game who have a heal. And Sylvanas is probably the only one who's not broke. Sorry, 4 Guardians in the game who have a heal. Artio has a heal if she hits somebody. It works like a lifesteal. She hits somebody and the life flows off and hits somebody else. Sylvanas sends up the wisps. And Terra uses her ult and drops her totem. Terra, I still would say warrior. While there's not much really to complain about her, she just seems to be very, very tanky and damage doing. But that's that. D tier. Okay, move to warrior. Now, I will break that down quickly before I move on. Ares, damage reduction. He could be a guardian, alright? Reduce the damage and enable beads to get away from the chains. He could be a guardian. Alright. Bacchus? No, I don't see how Bacchus could be a guardian anymore. Because he has nothing that can really benefit the team. He's sole purpose on himself. Cabrakan is another one who I would say definitely can't be a guardian. How many stuns and just... no, can't be. Terra could be a guardian, but just reduce the amount of damage she can put out. And also, maybe with her abilities, don't give so much health, potentially. Or just, at the very least, don't let her be able to dash through everything. For me, just dash through the totem, that's fine. Why does she need to dash through the stun ability? Alright, that's fine. Now then, everywhere's done. Next, S tier. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to move them in order of their release. There. Jormungandr or Jormungandr. When I was playing Smite, this was the first sort of god that I went, what are you thinking? Now, I've followed Smite for a long time, and I'm a big fan of Smite. I've always loved Smite. Play the battle passes when they come out. I'm currently trying to get a lot of gods to God Mastery 10. I'm nearly level 160. I know how long it takes to get to a level 160. But what were you thinking when you made this guy? Zero abilities to help the team. Tanks so much, but we'll go over them. First one. Spits a ball of venom, which is a lot further than a normal person. Alright. Actually can go the range of a hunter. That's fine. Okay. Roar, and when your pool of venom is nearby, or bile, or whatever it's called, can cause a lot of damage, and a roar causes a lot of damage. Go underground, turn yourself invisible, tunnel underground, pop up, and cause 2 more pools of bile if you've already got one there. Okay, let's just stop there. Not help the team in the slightest, causes damage, causes damage, causes damage. Plus the roar gives an effect which affects nearby enemies. Okay. So currently he seems like an insanely broken god. But let's go into that, shall we? Okay. Cannot be pulled in by Dashi's ult or Ares' ult. Okay. Interesting. Cannot be affected by Kumbragana Nishar. Okay. Quite interesting. I actually haven't tested it myself, but it doesn't seem to be effective by Alquan either. Is affected by Thanatos and Achilles. Okay. So he's pretty much immune to most things you can throw at him. Okay. But we will add number 1 on why here. His jump ability. What? How did you think that was a good idea, Hi-Rez? And I'm definitely asking you a question here. How? Jump. Jump. So you jump up in the air, land in one pool. Jump from another pool, land in another pool. Jump from another pool, land in another pool. He gets 3 jumps. Every time he jumps, he's going to a new area. It will leave a pool of bile behind. If you're stood on that, it causes damage. And even if he hits you. In the middle of his jump, if he lands down, it basically goes through the ground, and that causes damage, which breaks the laws of physics. Because you don't see his body pass through the floor. He jumps through. No, he just goes straight down. But he gets 3 of them. So imagine this. You're very low health. You're hiding in the tower. Jump 1, tower dive. Jump 2, tower dive. Jump 3, run away. Or better yet, when you're very low health, Jormungandr, jump 1, run away. Jump 2, run away. Jump 3, run away. How did he make sense? He's not a guardian. Personally, he's not even a warrior. No warriors can do that. How did Jormungandr make sense when they thought of him? When he first came out, he was broken. Broken beyond all belief. Nobody could touch him. The amount of damage he put out, the amount of the cooldown on his abilities. I remember playing, because I was still support back in those days. I came up against him, he slaughtered my lane. Then I'm like, okay, let's switch over to solo. He was on solo as well. Slaughtered the entire lobby. Games of Clash, games of Arena, he decimated. And which is why I still argue the point. Hi-Rez, do you actually test your gods before you release them? Now, now it's been quite a few years. I have spent money on Smite. I've bought god passes, I've bought chests, I've bought gems. And it's always come to the conclusion that I'm like, oh, I've loved this game. But the only thing that always seems to go wrong, I love your random events. It just seems the gods... Ugh. But never mind. Jorm, they did sort of fix. Alright? He's not as broken as he was. And to be honest, in a game, he's not the most broken anymore. But looking at his abilities in the form of a tier list, he kind of is broken. How can you fix that? Easy. Reduce his number of jumps from 3 to 2. Solve so much problems. He has 2 jump aways, and then he has 1 jump in for the tower dive, and then 1 jump out for the tower dive. I don't know why you needed 3, but alright. And overall, potentially you could change a few of his abilities. Like the Roar doesn't give a debuff. It gives actually a buff maybe to nearby allies. Could potentially be done. And the most important thing, when he goes underground, why is he invisible? If he gets a movement speed, he doesn't need to be invisible. He's not. He's the biggest snake on the planet. Why is he invisible? But that being said, move along. Yorm will get to the end of this, of what I think needs to be done with them. Yamoja is another one that I questioned. When she first came out, same as Yorm, she was broken. As saying that, Yorm was actually one of my favourites to play a while ago. Let's go over this. Yamoja. She is another one like Kushalan. Yes. Kukullan, whatever his name is. That she doesn't have mana, she has water. So she doesn't have any need for mana. Which sometimes can be annoying because it's hard to play her if you don't have the right amount of water levels. But her abilities, she has a similar to a multiple skill ability, but let's go over them, shall we? Throws a balloon of water, bounces, has a stun, quite significant, but it can be dodged quite easily. Her heal, very effective. Her passive basic attack, very effective, because it actually heals again. She has a portal that pushes people away, and then she walks through it, she gets more movement speed. And her ult, while being insanely ineffective, is pretty annoying. But so why is Yamoja on S tier? Well, I think it's mainly just to stress the fact that when she came out, she was broken. And she kind of still is broken. And I do take into consideration, I do occasionally look at the Smite tier lists overall, while I don't agree with most of them. I do notice that at the near enough every single tier list, Yamoja is top. Now, when I thought to myself, I'm like, how? You look at her abilities and you go, oh, wait. Yes, she is. Her water recharges a lot quicker than mana. Okay. Her abilities can be used insanely quickly with no cooldown. She can spam a heal ability 3 times. Insanely annoying. Her cooldown is minuscule compared to the rest of her abilities. And she just doesn't add up as a sort of a guardian. Where she has... Sure, her ultimate is probably the weakest of her things. She can block people from getting away, but you can just walk around it. But it's just very odd, Yamoja. I can't really explain it. It's... You see her, if she, for example, if she were to build movement speed and heal, she'd be pretty indestructible. But of course, ignoring that, you look at her abilities. And her abilities are very basic, but they're very, very effective. Now, does this mean Yamoja is broken? No. Does it mean she needs a rework? To a degree, yes. Do I want her removed? Not really. Yamoja is actually one of the ones that I just want to stress how high res their development goes. That it's... I will mention the last god who I will potentially say wasn't broken was Horus, or Baba Yaga, but get onto them on a different tier list. For me, Yamoja was insanely broken when she came out, but seems to have dropped. But for me, it's a confusing one. I must ask people, how is Yamoja broken? Because I'm only looking at her from her abilities, while she can spam her heal, spam her water abilities, and spam her runaway ability, she doesn't actually have anything that makes her insanely broken. So for that reason, I'm dropping her down to A tier. Where, for me personally, a cooldown on abilities would be nice. Or maybe reduced in how fast her water comes back would be a thing. But for me, it's just, I always see her as an S plus tier or an S tier, and I go, how? Of course, what you build with her would be very helpful, but I still, with her abilities, she's not broken. With her abilities, I will mention that she's not broken, it's just how quickly she can use them. Alright, now then, we come to the final god. The final god on this list. Woo, this has taken a while. Who are we left with? Oh, you. Cthulhu, or Hulu, or Stupid Squidman. Okay. Now I know I griefed about you with Jormungandr and Combracken, but I'm sorry about that high res. And Smite overall. My question, were you smoking cocaine Oh, sorry, I know you don't smoke cocaine, my apologies. Were you high on drugs when you thought this guy was a good idea? How the hell did you think making him was a good idea? He is the epitome of broken. He could solo every single Guardian in this game. Hands down. How? How was he a good idea? Since his time he's been out, he's had 7 nerfs. 6. 6 or 7, one or the other. 6 nerfs. Even to go as far as to say, oh, he's broken. Don't worry, he can't use his relics in his ult. That wasn't the problem. Until the other day, I didn't even know this. Cthulhu has an ability that heals his allies. What? Let's go over him, shall we? Because this is the epitome of why I'm starting to really hate Smite. I've followed you for 7 years. For free, okay, I'm going to say free, about 2.5. I came around, I can't remember the god who came out because I didn't play them. I only played who I could buy. It took me a year and a half to figure out, oh wait, there's an ultimate god pass. Getting back onto the subject, why I'm angry. You're releasing so many good gods over the years, and then you go, oh wait, should we test these gods? No, screw it, let's just throw them in there. Cthulhu has an ability, his basic X ability is like, he just shouts at you. Yeah, it's annoying, but if I believe his passive builds up, it actually causes you to run the other direction in like a sort of a haze, like Hades hits you with his ability. You turn around and go, oh no, I can't fight. Okay. His ground-based ability, he shoots out 2 giant tentacle pools of death, brought by Hermaeus Mora, his good old friend. He summons them, and if they hit you, they actually stun you in place, and they're actually the biggest area effect for anything, actually probably bigger than Sylvanus's area of effect for his ult. Okay? When that hits you, you're stuck in place and can't move. His dash can beat every other dash in the game. Varnama runs at him with an umbrella? Nope. Sung Wukong? Nope. Even Geb, they'll go through each other, but no, as soon as Fulu goes, you know what, I want to be on that side of the map, voomp, knocks you all out the way. Okay. So looking at those abilities, how many of them help the team? I actually don't know which of his abilities heals the bloody team, but let's get onto that in a minute. Okay. No, kind of. Kind of. Okay, making sense as a Guardian. And then you have my most hated thing in this game is called press triangle and I'm fine. Which is why Yormi Boy is on here, press triangle and I'm fine. However, the difference between Jormungandr and Cthulhu, Jormungandr gets 3 hits to try and hit you. Cthulhu is God. And in a game of gods, to have somebody higher than the gods is quite alarming. Press triangle, you're 50 stories tall, and you're freaking God. You can't use relics though, very important, remember that. You can't actually use relics, so it's a shame. Alright, what do? Slice the floor with one hand, basically wipes out half of the continent. Throw a shot of bile, which causes 5 times more damage than Jormungandr's, and stops anybody running away. If you have movement speed built, you're quicker than flipping Mercury. And a roar, just to make sure that anyone who is near you is disjointed and can't run away. Now, unlike Jormungandr's bile ability, when that hits you, it doesn't push you up into the air, stopping you from running away. But no, here's why Cthulhu's great. His ult lasts so long, he just smacks you, beats you up, and when he's all done, he's back down. Surely, for some sort of ult like that, it must have an insanely long cooldown. No, it doesn't. Surely, though, maybe you could stop him from buying that item that cools down the ability. Now, this is the only time I'm going to mention this, because I'll be mentioning it a lot with the mages. One item in the game, you buy it, and your cooldown goes down by 1 every 10 seconds. Now, I will be mentioning this a lot on the mages, but there was only one Guardian I could mention it on here, and it was Fulu. How? Some gods are not allowed to buy certain things. But my question is, Hi-Rez, how the hell did you think this man was a good idea? How? 6 nerfs since he came out. And he has had nothing done to him. His abilities don't make sense. He can counter everybody. Press triangle. He's just God. Every game, even if he's not building damage, every game I go in to find he's top damage. I went up against one in a game of Clash. He had 3 physical items, 1 movement speed, 3 magical defense items, and he was top damage. Sure, the build doesn't matter, but when you have someone who's supposed to be a tank being top damage on every single game, how? You don't test your damn gods. I'm so annoyed. I get so angry with this. It's you don't test them. You don't. You say you do, but it's bollocks. I'm sorry, it is. He can't have been a rational thought. Sure, the new god's supposed to be exciting and cool, not fucking broken. Guardians are it's my home. That's my piece of existence. This is where I live. Guardians are my favourite thing to play because I'm the tank, I'm the guy who helps the team. I heal, I save, I stun, I stop anybody getting towards me. I'd never touch this guy. Not gonna touch him. He's just the worst. He makes sense as a mage, maybe. He makes sense as a warrior, maybe. But I tell you what, he doesn't make sense in this bloody game. End. Done. Alright. Whew. That's it. We're done now. Good. Calm down. We're fine. He's gone away now. He's gone. Well, I think we'll just finish up by saying that was the Guardians. That is not going to be as angry as I'm going to get. Thankfully, I'm leaving the mages till last. So the mages is where I'm going to get the most angry. But our next time will be on the hunters. Yes, next time will be the hunters. So that should be fun. But for now, anyway, I will just say that this is the genuine tier list of how I feel about this game. 4 for rework, 4 for re-roll or give different abilities. 2 of them potentially, I tell you what, I'll throw them up here just so it's not confusing. 2 of them potentially could be fixed, as in, oh, wrong one. But they just need a little bit of rework done to them. Okay. B tier, they're fine. A tier, little bit of work. Jorm, I would say, for his abilities, is currently the most annoying god in the game. And Giant Squidman, I want him gone. I don't see any way he can be used as a god. You need to do a massive rework to him to try and get him to balance. Now, a lot of people will go, well, but his abilities don't seem that broken, or a lot of the time he's not actually that broken. But when you look at his abilities compared to the rest of the Guardians, it just doesn't make sense. He just doesn't make sense. But that's that. Guardians are done. Thank you for watching. That was quite enjoyable. That's the final picture. GG.